Oh, MSNBC, you've had Lawrence O'Donnell with such passions and emotions, and they can't defend that and afford passions and emotions by what is true always. And as roles with campuses A through C, A through Z having stayed sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw fact, human nature, quality aspects in nature. Like, well, in other words, collusions as criminal insidiousness nature. In other words, with convictions about like with dictators have forbid uses of hyper-evidential, like how we have black pupils, whites of eyes. It means to discern clearer than day. I'm not even a lawyer. Predicate acts with facts methods upon the people of New York City, upon the people of all locations slash S. But then sickly distinctly in any way is concentrated there. And where there are exception to everyone's self-value rules. You guys are replacing what James Madison and our founders behind him and his plan communicated. And you have self-value rules with that which are relative, not to make a personal, because you have rules with a whole bunch. All the countries in the news have families involved with predicate acts here, methods, organized crime methods, way worse than the crimes of the people of the sciences. Further hyper additionally other ways stayed roles with that use of that locations and with what that caused by the breaching method. But instead, it employed all to styles, logic, nature, blaming other things, others, ourselves for what it caused and what it maintains, blamed on other things. So you guys are also screening the sabotage of American history and the sabotage and criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw, convictions and syntax of the names of the people of the sciences. It is also relative to where and how there are such unscientific takes on the religious books, exactly ulterior from how they ask to be right up front. The first part of the Old Testament says, only defend right here where the names of the people of the sciences will come together in the part that comes before it. In other words, instead, everyone wants to use passions and emotions dishonestly. Otherwise, this would have surfaced. Just like in how the only thing that gave people the you think there wasn't they still had slavery entrenched overtly with black, and it was against everyone. And if anyone was found to be not in collusion with internationally monitored conversations that were sick together with slavery entrenched, sickly distinctly northern colonies and southern colonies, and that had been sustained. Then our founders were born. And so that's why they're kicking off a king. The kings they don't remember England because they too, just like our founders had to start and pretend they didn't realize rules of the breaching method with slavery still entrenched, northern colonies, southern colonies, right up to the end of end of the Civil War. Our founders forced the other founders, 1/3 of them. There are three natures of America's founders relative to the breaching method, but their syntax and our own as a human species body. Otherwise, that body is sensed, including if it is a majority of people, including if it is the name of everyone in the country together. It is adapted to, relative to where there and how there's a singular use of other things, others ourselves, blamed for where and how a breaching method caused things historically, and maintained other things, others ourselves, where itself causing things was an answer. It made other things, others ourselves blamed until that was true. And everyone is still forced to speak through others. And then have a nature of debate. What people say, the nature of debate, that contains quality aspects of nature that wouldn't be had we had each age of fact should be nature with short words proper. And with the nature of debate proper, they're faking people's words. And relative to putting faked and changed transcripts in databases, fake ties, fake natures of ties to kids next to the campuses with a whole bunch of countries at once, with something fluid through them since before our founders were born. Grouped tactical terrier, from how the nature communicates with the value of the grouping of the human species body and of individual bodies, and all group differences generated by its difference. This is shown to us where and how we are shown the other species bodies have individual species bodies as value, as identity, as space/existence. In other words, as volume signs not criminally foreign influence and capable of affording to be, so to protract. In other words, convictions by nature proper, and with that hyperconditional love that we know. You know, that's why if a bear is attacking other humans, everyone's going to jump in. There's a love. You don't even have to like the person. You're going to help them. You know what I'm saying? You see, but the human value nature system has been syntactically too entertained through an systems tactical interior. The agencies, so you guys change the fake what people say. So you won't let us get to the agency's roles. That because they themselves were used remotely since they were kids. And while their parents were, and the difference of that. There are applications by, in other words, there's increasingly others record all sides of criminal and civil cases and the news at the same time, and their sources, their family members, their neighbors, and the courts the same thing, and the intelligence tied to them, and the names next to the locations tied to them. The breaching method showed them how it showed people A through Z, individually grouped them together, where and how it could hide their roles with its breaching method. And this is observable relative to where and how Black people's rights of eyes are left out. And with all exceptions where people deny this, even or are for it because they take this breaching method holds people showing they just need to partake fake sides of issues and keep roles with exception nature being haven't been fake. Therefore, everyone incapable increasingly of discerning how nature uses exceptions in exception nature the ways we know, but also a distinct way that no other identities of volume could mimic, like where and how we could sense having Black people's rights of eyes and just having been left out. The relativity, for example, of where and how we make excuses, and we love the people who educate us. So even though we know that they didn't speak about it correctly, and when they did speak about it correctly or try to, that's adapted to. The differences of the collusions at each age of fact should be nature, as the adults or as the kids. This is also estimated where and how the left out is the hyper foreign, not just a whole bunch of different countries, people that look different, and the difference between people who know each other or not, people who relate each other, motivations. This breaching method knew that it would need to keep. It knew that nature would keep demonstrating a human fact human nature breaching method, for example, is one of the things true always, that its influences over those laws were. In other words, that what the sum value of those laws were. And we could show that there's even conscious uses of it that way as a human fact should be nature breaching method. Nature even shows us how we could blame a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise as countries A through Z equal at the same time. And we could let we could do it in an adapting way and an immediate release for countries like, in other words, in different ways. But everyone's going to have to deal with how they had roles with justice and uses of words like crimes, where and how they have roles of predicate acts for facts, torture, extortion, and slavery. And they're speaking about that anyway. And with passions and emotions to force things before courts that have been using criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw experts at the same time as means to cover up roles with collusions at all natures of crime scenes relative to how this preaching method of religion, witch trials about even they're made up. They're about all sides of criminal and civil cases, the legal names, the intelligence, foreign and domestic, they never had their own identity. All exceptions and exception nature that appear to be a demonstration of other, they are collusions against James Madison, our founder, which is the only real exception, but that's not liberated yet. So how could they interpret Marbury versus Madison? Not properly. Real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. All kinds of natures of investigators. They're not going to jump up and jump up all and fight against all the ways, like the differences between their collusions with uses of lies and truths for lies and to screen it and motivations as they're only capable of doing relative. In other words, there was slavery entrenched. There were dictators entrenched. It wasn't because they were uploading a dictator. They were forcing, with James Madison's plan, easements on the same torture, extortion, slavery method on every individual voice. In England, too, even kings. Everyone tactically, criminally, foreign influence sciences, collusion / this with the breaching method, otherwise it would sense, and through their own. And then there were for further the names of the people of the sciences. I'm saying sciences too, but in our nature debate, the difference between them and that, or the people, or the overt criminal enterprises, terrorists, only capable of being. And roles with the differences of location / S, where and how it's been a part of all kinds of natures of organized crime. At the same time, the difference of that, as this, again, with people speaking about expertise and like the value of what people have to have faith in. When should we have faith in CIA or FBI? When they have left out, they have roles replacing what our founders communicated about the breaching method inside as a scientific value inside the communications of our founders. There was a human fact nature breaching method as a scientific value. But that is observably being and having been replaced, and that is being screened the motivations. And they have delusions to Lawrence O'Donnell and the sources of MSNBC, Fox News sources, CNN news sources, Connecticut government access television. They have roles with Russians, Ukraine. They're doctors involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, overt criminal enterprises, private ones at the same time. In other words, there's communications, racketeering, worse than war crimes. They're changing and faking what's actually digitally recorded, which confirmed confirmed on Facebook. All kinds of collusions with all kinds of natures of organized crimes against the kids through administrations too. Showing fake transcripts. Harvard Hospital showed fake transcripts to the presidents and ways rather their roles with all kinds of criminally foreign influence investigators. Roles of all kinds of natures, police forms. Criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions wrought with their campuses. And between campuses of all ages and natures, including medical and fire campuses. We're going to address the delusions here. In other words, slavery's roles, north and south, shows that there are not passions and emotions. Honest. And all honesty is being used for lies by Lawrence O'Donnell, replacing and screening the replacement of the breaching method and the fact-sheet nature of our founders. Connecticut's Channel 3 News has intelligence at and next to their location, involved at and next to the state capitol, and at and next to Fox Connecticut News, involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants and their family members, and people tied to them and their neighbors, involved with all kinds of natures of organized crime, including with judges and prosecutors, all kinds of judges And these are people increasingly with the difference of the corruption and delusions at the state judicial branch offices of Connecticut or next to it, like a guy with a pickup truck with a picture of himself on Facebook as one of the ones involved with the intelligence community forging, switching names too, attaching people to fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to them, locking identities of law, roles with predicate acts with facts methods that are also singularly bound, and it hides behind the plural roles with it, which is also what is actually recorded. In other words, relative. So James Madison's plan and the founders behind that which forced the other founders to be, and with Native Americans, see, president slash chief. See, that's what forced the American Revolution. Right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, George Washington, then as our first president, distinct from our founders, but non-distinct with them because he agreed to help our founders. See, and we were supposed to be honest about the extortion of him, which would have brought up the declassified about how our means to talk about the breaching method and its roles with the laws in the internationally monitored conversations and natures of diplomacy involved with all kinds of natures of organized crime, but people and roles with it, but people speaking about law anyway. People still, delusions rock, criminally foreign influence takes on what witch trials are or were about. And as the subjects isolated, using exception nature, tactical terror from how nature itself shows us to. Ugh. And our founders did. Obviously, in other words, witch trials were about the breaching method that was entrenched northern colonies, southern colonies, and having been sustained against Native Americans and against the whole species body as a hyper-native system separated from it. And then they were born. And there are proofs then. There are proofs that was sustained. There are proofs that they took down a mountain. Is also, even if it's not true, it's more practical than what has been formally convicted. Like about dictator. We had a whole bunch of dictators. You guys have all kinds of sexual agenda through the kids. And the people next to the schools are colluding with that. All kinds of behavior racketeering, worse than war crimes. And then planting evidence on all sides of their houses and making it self-valued then in the future. This breaching method had a hyper sophistication, possession over all locations /s since before modern religious messengers were born. The sciences have been valued, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. I'm not even a lawyer. I'm not even a journalist. The news, WFSB attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others. At the same time, while WCNH had a whole bunch of sources planting evidence on corners of streets and on and off campuses, I went and I caught them with the same campus and people next to it with the principal child offender and whiting forensics increasingly involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and body dumping spots. And murders, untimely deaths brought this up too. Weathersfield police recorded confessed demonstrated confirmed there are more people with the name Scalora involved with them with predicate acts on my street and with them planting evidence on all sides of my house and at my house. Ones with the name Tomorrow have roles with breaking a window on my back porch. I don't know if they broke in the house. They said they were gonna, and then Heather Hansen was with them at a corner of Joe DeMore and Heather Hansen. And Joe DeMore confessed he brought the Klotz family into it. And other people at different times said that Joshua Stryker is involved with them also, and with neighbors of people tied to him, who are also involved on all sides of the Weathersfield Community Center, with people on the corrections offices and the judicial branch offices, roles with the World Trade Center attack. In other words, we get back. In other words, vaccines, like those things. But they have wire crime acts and methods and digital crime methods where the agencies have been placing what's actually digitally recorded. And they've been hiding. They're implying that they have roles with maybe nuclear because of how they've been using the right to lie where they don't have the right to lie, and how as collusions where they've been stacking predicate acts into databases, including dozens of people with New Britain Superior Court and tied to them, involved with conversations with people from Wethersfield, involved with all sides of Hartford Hospital with identity theft, fraud, slander. There's a Dave Chappelle who was a comedian. I saw one of his jokes, or it wasn't a joke. I don't know what he was telling me. He was at a party, and his kid was at the same party with him, but he didn't even know it. Like just like we're in the small towns, there are a whole lot of people who are connected by government, and they're shared with a whole bunch of different other governments here, and the criminal enterprises and the terrorists. The breaching method showed them at the same time they have to hide the same sequence shifts. Finite active progressive lies, delusions, truth used for lies, truth used to scream lies, motivation screening. A breaching method knew that nature would show us. A breaching method is a scientific value and an answer behind what could motivate such to roles with such, like with slavery. A human fact, human nature breaching method that was a torture, extortion, and fact, human nature slavery method. And no one person should have their words accosted, let alone accosted and self-valued. Collusion/S with database racketeering and behavior racketeering, especially regarding motives still, with each age of campus, with each age of employment. In other words, the difference of their value as employment. Our founders communicated for us to understand employment's role with the torture, extortion, slavery method. With no free speech, but everyone would pretend otherwise that body would be censed and it would be accounted for, including if it was a majority of people as the body, including if it was the name of our entire country, A through Z. Here, Anthony, we have been used as systems tactical terror from that hypernated pure. So we need to make three natures of hypernative, of tribes. We could define things that, we have to do things as a species body planning at the same time. It's not just transnational and criminal enterprises and borders rackets. And note, they go in and run in the high progressions at the same exact time with the families of fire campuses and of other campus people associated with it. All the natures and elements of undercover and their acting professors associated with people with the name Walters. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people with the name Collusion, with the Whiting Forensics and State Police, and people with the name Dylan. Increasingly involved, there's a Phil Collusion, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with predicate acts on my street with a Bob Chase, falsifying police reports with police involved with intercampuses, intercities through time, intra too, like Mendez police involved with identity theft, fraud, slander. I never had a class with the Mendez police. Increasingly, they have roles with other people from other countries. Increasingly, people tied to a Fred Grisette are involved with all kinds of medical offenders of kids, with men and women, collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and their roles with the intelligence not legitimately that way. In other words, Chris White will know that he has, I think it's high. I don't know who that is. I don't even know that's his real name. There are people tied to this, in other words. That's reported tied to a shooting in the North End. I'm not even saying the shooting's real or not. But these are some black KKK Confederate flag themed. And people that I never had classes with. And her sister, in other words, was involved with and Ray Reynolds. Increasingly, people tied to Ray Reynolds and his educators have been involved with people next to the campus I went when I was in kindergarten, increasingly with people with identity theft frauds I never had classes with. And they try to make fake exceptions by putting me in fake classes. You know, I mean, like in a middle school class I had with a Mr. Neville, he has rules increasingly with people all along Route 3, which goes by the state judicial branch offices, right through the towns it goes through, and with people with Vermont and interstates involved with organized crimes with him. And I never had a personal conversation with him. This is per them and per what was through time recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with this. Increasingly, a police chief, Cintron, and some people with the name Cintron involved with security and people that work with Sandy Hook campuses and a prison there. Increasingly involved with the police chief, Cintron, and people at each of the campuses I went to, including when they put me in a summer school and why they put me in a summer school class is lied about by Mr. Neville. He has roles with a whole bunch of people at Trinity College, with people with the name Collusion, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, and the name Joshua Stryker. I never seen them together. In other words, one time I was around a Joshua Stryker. I spoke about it like not like dishonestly, but like a little bit dishonestly, because I let them. They were talking about it in the background. These are people involved with the World Trade Center attack and identity theft, fraud, standards, and planting and fake motives with people with other countries, overt criminal enterprises involved with grammar school kids and middle school kids attached to fake ties to other kids. Increasingly, people at Hartford Hospital and next to it with the Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living have roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders. Increasingly, in other words, these are people that jump into other people's conversations on social media that have personal and professionally roles with prosecutors and judges, changing and faking and self-body roles with that, which actually digitally recorded and what has been confirmed on this as these things and names on off the state corrections offices of Connecticut, people with the names DeMorrow and Colo, also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with judges, with medicine, crimes, identity theft, frauds, planting, have people take a picture and their kids next to each other, next to people they don't even know. At 3 spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike, including increasingly involved with identity theft, fraud, slings, all kinds of natures of organized crimes, as the people next to the campuses, increasingly next to Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living, and a line from there to UPS, like involved with the people along with the judicial branch offices used remotely, distinctly, but non-distinctly from how the Connecticut corrections offices was used remotely, criminally foreign influence, and all that's been associated with them. Also, tactically delusions wrought, predicate acts with facts methods, and collusions with all kinds of natures of criminals before they were caught, including with names next to body dumping spots involved. A Ray Clow and a Joe DeMorrow said they had syntax with people I don't know, but they were involved with them pretending other and doing, in other words, implanting evidences. And roles were U/S of that with foreign and domestic families involved with I forgot what it was about. It has something to do with that though. Oh, a toddler house. It's where there was a reported serial killer's body dumping spots, and foreign and domestic military, or like a Eric Burgess and other recorded, and like a Kuwaiti general, his family involved with some deans from different campuses I went to and the family members, also involved with principals and their family members through time, involved with various natures of organized crimes. People involved next to them, way worse. And way worse than that is using the difference of that too. That's why it's important not to have people's short words changed, not to have the nature of debate used to force things before courts that were recorded already in collusions to all sides of criminal and civil cases in the courts, forging and switching names and sequences. And that's used by others, like at Central Connecticut State University, has collusion/S with names on all sides of a case in the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center right before the attack. And the court itself, it was proven afterwards, had been changed. The date legal papers were brought to that court, And that these are the same ones with WFSB and names next to them that were involved long term, short term before that, plotting with Saudi attackers too, with the Saudi difference, with the American difference. They have the victims of the World Trade Center attack also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with timed use slash S of relative body dumping spots, even if they made it up. And people involved with all along Two Route Highway, where it runs into the Hangdog Lane, are involved with houses next to the and people on off the state judicial branch offices. With like and in conjunction to it, like Weathersfield Pizza House has rules with identity thefts, frauds, and slanders and wire crime acts and methods with the foreign and domestic intelligence, intercities and intercampuses and intracampuses. They're putting fake ties, fake natures of ties between people. They're planting predicate acts roles. There's a Steven Stocko involved. I believe there's a Maria Stocko too. I don't know if they're married. I believe they're married. In other words, they're involved with all kinds of planting identity theft, fraud, slander, sequence shifts, fake ties, fake nature ties. Now, I never saw a Maria Vazina on a campus in Weathersfield in my life, and a Steven Stocko. He was in my camp. I only saw him inside of a class from behind. I never had a word of a conversation with him the whole time he was in math class with me, and was recorded. He was put there relative to as roles with predicate acts through time. He has roles with people from Central Connecticut State University. He non-verbally demonstrated to me with his wife's confessions, if that's his wife, Maria Stocko. In other words, their neighbor, the Brian Bowen, also with their roles with the DACA program, and like with a whole bunch of different countries all along Route 3 and with the state judicial branch offices and being conjuncted with that. And the Elm Streets and Rocky Hill and Weathersfield. Increasingly, people involved with use slash S of relative predicate acts in each database I went to from off the campuses being and having been influenced. But it's influencing hyper additional roles, and that's gotten away with where and how. Now, things that are not debatable are gotten away with, pretended to be debatable. This means people pretending that they believe honestly, with passions and emotions, what they say about things about like be a dictators. You have roles with six natures of organized crimes, with facts, whole digital crime methods, whole wire crime methods. Weathersfield police attached me to fake conversations with them at the police station as a kid, and then as an adult, sickly distinctly. It wasn't all when I was a kid. Wasn't all when I was an adult. You could see how I went down there, at least it was an adult. But then they took the one where it made me a fake conversation with one of the Mendez police, and then made more an additional falsified police report from one associated with a Bob Chase for the same arrest, which is one of the things multiple police departments involved with the same house / S personally and professionally criminally foreign influence. They're not legitimately with the military and the intelligence with the Weathersfield Police Department and the town offices. They're leaking roles with a whole bunch of people at Whiting Forensics, with police forms refusing to identify themselves, involved with poisons, bug spray, fake conversations with me, and fake conversations with others pretending people are chasing them. And increasingly, it's true that investigators use criminally foreign influence, but they are constantly being and having been. And they're kids. They'll tell you this, but you have to ask them correctly. Some of the ones that are in the background, you get them on the paper. And the ones who were pretending to speak honestly or using the right to lie honestly on Facebook, they were recording themselves with Facebook, FBI, the Weathersfield Police have people with the name Schumack. A whole bunch of people were tied to the name Schumack with fire departments and with people with some KKK black theme, Confederate flag theme, Latino theme, and into religious spots, and names next to them involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and federal evidences crimes, and with their educators. And then they're lying about what they think when we have to use, when we have to refer to people that we don't even know. It makes it look like we knew them as kids. And when there are exceptions, it's relative that there are recorded conscious uses of fake exceptions where they have roles with all sides of criminal and civil cases interstates and time uses of it. Increasingly with a Detective Samuda at the British Superior Court and with Central Connecticut State University, involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and a whole bunch of people. There are proofs that they're changing and faking, which recorded 24/7 on the campuses per criminally foreign influence uses of those campuses from off of them. This is since I was a kid. People from intelligence that lived near me, named Burstein, have been involved with intelligence at Central Connecticut State University with people named O'Brien and former Mayor Gold's family, and a whole bunch of people tied to them increasingly involved with predicate acts, with identity theft, fraud, claims, putting fake things in databases, including with medical families, fake ties to kids with medical families, ones with badges too. So it's not just people speaking about diplomacy relative to war and revolution. You guys are stealing American history roles. You guys are roles with all kinds of scams and natures of organized crimes, and with the torture, extortion, slavery method. It is reported, is confessed that they knew through time there was mold with schools. Oh, but we're not experts though. They're just trying to establish the experts. Even if they fake the mold, in other words, they're leaking here. Increasingly, people next to the state education department have people involved with society attackers, with whiting forensics names, involved with planting evidences with them. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with the news. There are West Hartford teachers and intelligence, like ones with the name O'Neill. I don't know at all. Involved with them with whiting forensics and wire crimes and mail crimes, with a Phil Collusion and a whole bunch of people tied to a Phil Collusion, involved with society attackers and people with the name Scalora, involved also with the people at the World Trade Center next to it and the court next to it. Increasingly as ones with Connecticut. That's in Manhattan. So the agencies have been fishing what people say and they're haven't been used to fish for the breaching method, for cover-ups, for their motivations with this. There's a Mike Domain as one, and people with the name Mendez who are involved with sexual and medical abuses of kids as intelligence communities next to Fox Connecticut News. Also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, and involved with wire crimes and digital crimes with WFSB and intelligence next to them too. And these are people also involved with social security scams with doctors and lawyers at the Institute of Living, involved with intelligence, foreign and domestic, including military, including with Cuba per a flag next to there. Where the people there that attached me to fake conversations, a whole bunch of people tied to the name Lombardo, and I had like a few words with her. She faked me to fake screaming, so she could stick an arm and thing in my thing. The only reason they locked me down on a table is because I tried to run through the door, and then I was grabbed. When they held me with they wouldn't even tell me yet why they had me there. I know why they had me, because I got forced people to call the police without telling them why. Rather than let me talk to anyone, they stole me to fake conversations with themselves. And increasingly, Hartford Hospital has people tied to the Parks and Recreation, and people involved with the Dillon family that are involved intercampuses and on off them with differences of predicate acts there or off them. They have wire crime acts and methods, and they attached me to fake conversations with the police when I was a kid. And they put me to fake ties and fake natures of ties to other kids. And they forced them to do that with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and a whole bunch of other countries and people involved with body dumping spots with their syntax. Chris Walters will tell you, and his neighbors too, involved like with the ones with the name Lombardo, involved with the people next to me that were involved with wire crimes, falsified police reports, all kinds of interagencies corruption here. And with the judges, a whole bunch of judges, personally and professionally, involved with the one Smith and Collusion, involved with them. They lied to a Kathy Tansey about me, and they lied to a Jennifer Smith about me, with the former director of the FBI influencing it, but also other countries and the breaching method, because they have worse than criminal incompetence where they have other things, others ourselves, blamed right where our founders communicated for us and with nature itself communicates for us. A preaching method was the answer to all kinds of questions like what caused slavery, a human-factual nature preaching method, a torture, extortion, and slavery method and roles used at other locations slash S and or those former locations that forced it. And the difference of that was it's used by it too. Oh, in other words, please, Lawrence O'Donnell, follow mandated law and let me get a response for the principal child abusers' confessions and confirmations and how they hid roles with untimely deaths. With the intelligence supposed to be countering such things with drugs, they use all they're just using the location and their titles, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. See them next to union places associated with the Cololo and with the local 230 local to and see them with the narratives with the money, the costs for school buildings and relative to their syntax with the mold, which that shows instantly you stop things when there's mold. Oh, but what are we going to do to the kids? See, these conversations are not allowing brought in the relative organized crimes. You guys are changing and faking people's short words, and you are self-adding roles with titles where they are not supposed to be, and you need to pretend other because it's already recorded that was collusion already and screening things already. So you're pretending to be against dictators. And you're repeating right where the only people have the voice to speak for the human species body. You're using name America, not as our possessed, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, with the experts A through Z. You guys have sick takes on reality. We're going to examine this in the wire and mail crime methods in the criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, readings of statutes and precedents, like the value of what's said online. You guys left out exception nature. You have falsified police reports roles, stacking them into databases roles, and with the FBI grouped too. Crime methods with New Britain Superior Court, Hartford courts before the World Trade Center attack. Connecticut District Court has people involved with this too, and digital crime methods. You have readings of statutes to give, that they were shown that the breaching method showed them how to read statutes. Then it showed them how they need to hide that from things past, active, and to come. That's why, in other words, you guys don't know how you, all locations, areas, and states everywhere the species body is when they use leaders' names. You guys leaving out exceptions. You have these answers replaced. Pace, return, religion, trade. The child tribes who disbelieves. Get them on one name in sequence, please. Now, there's more people involved from other areas on my street through time. And I still haven't had a response. And this is increasingly involved in relative ways. And it's recorded increasingly. People are pretending others recorded. They pretended in databases. I pretended through they pretended through mail too to other people that I had conversations with people I never were at all. And they said that I said that people were chasing me. I never said it to anyone at all. In other words, now I realized the people who did that are the people involved. That's how I'm starting to realize there are people that I wouldn't even know it is. And increasingly, people that Tim O'Brien and Rick Sion Faglione have been planting evidences with names next to schools. And he went around and had conversations with people through the area, and they have telephone conversations that are real mixed with fake ones at a whole bunch of different police departments, all sides of criminal and civil cases. Their roles in prisons, sick, criminal, all kinds of medicines, corruption, and tactically delusions wrought with a whole bunch of different countries at the same time. Collusion/S with everything that comes before them. Black pupils, it is time. Who disbelieves? Get them on paper, like one name in sequence. Get me off the fake conversations with WFSB and making me beg for you to get me out there. Conversation with the interbranch too. At the same time, that's evidences for ourselves. They're hiding this. Mr. Lawrence, MSNBC, get those prosecutors and judges on paper. Get them to get off your words too, in those delusions. If you disbelieve them, watch, speak. I'll show you your delusions. That's not what America's about. America is not free yet. See, Constitution unabridged and hyper additionally, why and how we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them, and more vaccines. I teach us things belong.